that wants to be traded because he's on a team he doesn't think has a chance to win, that's a tough one, right? Especially the guy who's been there an awfully long time. I think you see a lot of young players, it seems, these days where it gets out there, and it may not be directly from the player, but the hint or the insinuation is might be a time for a change, different role, different opportunity. Um, and I don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about it, to be honest with you. I mean, we have conversations with the player, but I find it's far more valuable just to watch. Um, so Patrick Laine today, I mean, he practiced like a man. He was hard. He was fast. He was as good as I've ever seen him practice. So I'll judge that. He's here. He was in a good mood. He was fun to watch, and we had a heavy practice with hard, even strength drills. So he's committed. He's committed to being a great player, and that's almost the only thing I weigh. Everything else is just sometimes innuendo. Sometimes it might be his agent said this. You see it quite often. So when we get into these situations, the first thing I do is I watch him first day on the ice, and he looked good, So I'm happy he's here, and I'm really really impressed with the way.
I can appreciate that. That's what you're looking for, number one, as a coach. It's kind of the second time, though, that this has kind of come around, and it reflects, I guess, on his unhappiness with his role, and that it might be better somewhere else. So, how do you kind of balance that?
Because who Patrick Laine was 4 years ago is different than today, and is different 4 years from now. And this isn't specific to Patrick. All the things these young players want are available for them to have, and in Winnipeg or whatever team that they're on. If they keep growing and getting better, then they'll get the minutes that they're looking for and the opportunity they're looking for. So there's an intersection here when what a player wants um, intersects with what's the best team for the team, then everybody gets what they want, right? Then it all falls in line and place. So I would tell you after watching him skate today, I mean, I just wouldn't put a ceiling on what this young man's capable of doing. He was impressive out there. A guy that practices like that over and over, his game will just take off, and then all the things that he wants can be had in Winnipeg. So none of this is permanent, right? You work as hard as you can every day. You just keep getting better, and as you get better, you get more opportunity, and then you're on the ice one day, you're scoring goals, the crowd's cheering, everything is great. So as you change, as you morph, as you mature, and as you get better, the opportunity around you changes as well. So things change. And like I said, I was really, really happy with his day today.
All right, we'll go next with Jamie Thomas from Jets Radio. Go ahead, Jamie.
Hey, Paul. Just wondering how excited you see the growth in the games of Mason Appleton and Jansen Harkins this season.
Uh, we had a bunch of guys. You know what, Jamie? A little bit stepped on the ice today, and about halfway through, you kind of realize like we're not young anymore. We're still youngish. I'm not saying we're an old grizzled team, but there aren't a lot of guys that were on the ice in that second group that you're saying, hey, 5 years from now he's going to be a really good player, right? We've had that maturity, and it's those guys. So Appleton's gone through that um, development time, and Hark's kind of still in on it, but because of the style of play, I got 5 lines on the ice today, and we looked hard through 5 lines. Like we looked like we had good players on all 5 lines. Hark was one of them, Apples on the other. Um, so they looked like they've turned pro. If that's maybe I know it's overused, but we looked like we had a bunch of pro hockey players on the ice today.
All right, we'll go next with Mike McIntyre from the Winnipeg Free Press. Go ahead, Mike.
Hi, Paul. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you.
How do you approach a training camp such as this? I think you're going to have 9 total days if you include the day off on Saturday. 9 days, no exhibition games, a limited number in camp, and you've got to, I guess, not only build a 23 or 22-man roster, but a taxi squad as well. So how do you use these next 9 days or so?
Well, it's a really good credit. You're going to go into the most unusual year that you've ever had, certainly schedule-wise, condensed schedule. So we know that we've got a window and an opportunity to go hard, and we're going to go hard now. So um, you're seeing very few flow drills out there. We're into the grind. We need to get prepared for that. It's been a long stretch. You know, it almost feels like it is March, right? Since you were back into any kind of rhythm of a normal NHL year, and clearly none of this is normal. But in terms of the hockey, where you're not just somewhere for 10 days. You're going to be here. It's a season. So we got a window here to go hard, and then once the schedule hits, you're just not going to be able to. So we're trying to maximize that now. Let's make sure that when the puck drops against Calgary, we're ready for the grind of it, the bumping. These guys have been getting up and down the ice wherever they've been, passing pucks, doing all the little skilled things. But the hardness, the man's game part that they have that you can't replicate, we got to get as much of that in as we can. So if everybody gets 36 skaters, we've got an awful lot of defensemen here. So we don't have a lot of forwards, which means even scrimmaging becomes a challenge based on the numbers that we have. So we've got to get it daily in our grinding drills, but we're going to work real hard. And what was interesting about today is that the capacity to work has gotten better. There's always a big drop off when you get to training camp between the top end and, let's say, you get your fourth, fifth line. I'm not even talking about skill. I'm talking about their ability to drive drills. So those of you who've watched our training camps, you've seen guys like, Blake would be the quintessential person I'm talking about. He can drive for an hour and a half hard, flat out, and not many people can, especially kids. They just can't do it. So there's always that tempo and work ethic gap, but it was good today. Like our fifth line had it. They went after it today, and so I think we have the capacity to go harder than we've gone in the past.
And then just, Paul, a quick personnel question on the guys that weren't on the ice today. Are you able to give us an update on, I see Marco Dano was put on waivers today. I'm not sure what his status is, but Gustafson, Trevor Lewis, when we might see them on the ice?
Yeah, I think the answer is I'm not allowed to answer that question right now. Like Gus was on the ice this morning. The players that aren't fit to play. I don't think too long term on anybody. I mean, I'm going to give you the information I'm allowed to give you. I think in a week's time, I'm allowed to give you more information than that.
Right.
But I don't think I can give you more than that right now.
Thanks, Paul.
And we'll move next to Ted Wyman from the Winnipeg Sun. Go ahead, Ted.
Hi, Paul. Happy New Year to you.
You, Ted.
The Blake and Paul Stassing were both on here earlier talking a little bit about how nice it was for them to have, a Christmas season with their families, Thanksgiving, just a different kind of lead up into this season. I'm wondering too, for players who are a little bit older, can this situation with this training camp and this shorter season work in their favor?
Well, I think the experience that comes with age, sometimes the older guys can actually adjust better, right? They've got their bodies fine tuned. They're not in almost a growth phase. They're in a maintenance phase, so they know exactly what they need to do. I would say that shortened seasons in a lot of ways are always tailored better to veteran players, right? They know their game. They don't have to wait 2 months to build into it. They're usually fitter. They're usually stronger. The question will be, how heavy a toll do older players, what price do they pay for? Like we got Calgary, and I think we play 5 and 7. And you won't see that schedule in the NHL very often. I think there's two other teams that play that. The 5 and 7 is almost out of our game because it's dangerous almost, right? Like it pushes players right to their max. So we'll monitor, but like the Stastny goes out today. He's fit. Like he gets through that practice, and Wheeler the same way. All the older men get through the practice. So there's also something to. I think when you get older, you're fully aware that you're not feeling very good every day you get out of bed, so you just get used to it, right? So they'll get into the grind of this schedule, and having something sore when you get out of bed, it's pretty normal for these guys, so maybe they have that advantage too.
Sorry, I just got muted again by accident. Also, just a question about Tucker Pullman. I believe skating with the first group. Logan Stanley moving
We lost you there,
that
Ted.
other group.
So again, I'm not supposed to give you a whole lot of information on that, but you would have noticed that Tucker Bullman was wearing a gold jersey, right? And so was Gus. And that's usually a sign that those guys are in some kind of non-contact situation. So that's me trying to sneak away. I'm just leading you. Anybody that's ever wearing, for the most part, I don't think I've ever run a gold jersey as a line. If a guy's in gold, that's a non-contact sweater. So he's either coming off something or we're monitoring something. So I had two guys in goals at 7:30 on the ice this morning.
And then Stanley ends up coming up with the main group. Is that a good opportunity for him, obviously, here early on?
Yes. So he had a good day today. And young guys, you don't want to get excited about him after one practice for sure. But he's markedly more fit man than he was last year, which means he's getting around the ice better. He looked, his size is clearly noticeable, but he fit in that group today. So it was a good opportunity, and he made the most of it.
Ready? We'll go next with Sarah Orlowski from TSN. Go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, Paul. Just wondering, with no exhibition games, will we see you maybe move around your lines a lot throughout this training camp? Will you experiment with some of them? Because you know how much anticipation, I would say, people sometimes look at your lines and your defensive pairings.
So you saw today that's a little different than maybe we would have finished up. Obviously, Paul coming in changes that quite a bit in our forward group. I got one other thing I'd like to play with possibly. If we're going like we went today, I'm not sure how much I'm going to play around with it, Sarah. Like I liked some things and I saw some things there that I want to see a little bit longer. We'll go, just to lay it out, we'll go fairly similar today, tomorrow, like we did today. We're going to get a bit of a scrimmage in, bodies allowing, because we're at our minimum in terms of forwards to run a scrimmage. So we'll do that on Wednesday. We'll come back with two really heavy days, systems wise, but also even strength in terms of drills, take the day off. And then kind of almost alternate days between heavy and lighter. A lot of special teams in the back half of camp. But that's kind of the schedule for what we've got going forward. In terms of if I got a line out there that I don't like, then we'll start playing with it. There is one other thing I wouldn't mind looking at that would be different than we've run before. So I'll just play that by ear.
The change of having Kyle Connor down on that line with Stastny and Line, what is it that you think maybe he can add to that line, or why make the move?
I've always liked, so it's a better way to explain this. Kyle and Nikki have a different kind of speed, right? They use their speed differently. And the best way for me to say it is that the way Kyle moves, I think Stas and Patty need. I think that's the best use of speed for those two guys. Now, the way Patrick was moving today, he looked powerful and fast. So that may change over time. Again, these players change almost every year, but Kyle has such a straight line speed and can get into holes in a certain way that's different than Nicky. Nicky can wind it up, and he's got more of an agility speed. He can go sideways as fast as he can go forward. So it's a different kind of thing. I also have always liked, the idea was if Nicky can handle the minutes there with Scheif and Blake, those are two big men. So that's maybe sometimes a better play to put a smaller player. Just he won't have to fight pucks out of the corners as much with those two guys. So it's as much a balance thing, but it has to do with the way Kyle skates and the style of speed that he has. I think fits with those two guys well.
Thank you.
Go next to Ken Weeb from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Ken.
Thanks, Greer. Thanks, Paul. How does a guy like Dylan Sandberg catch your attention without the benefit of being able to play in exhibition games and being on the first group for now?
Yeah, tough. So he's, first camp, he looked good this morning. He'll get into scrimmage time. That'll be the first thing where he starts getting out against bigger, heavier guys. But really, unfortunate for a guy that we think an awful lot of. And if we were having this this conversation in a normal September, Ken, I'd say we'll see. You know, we'll get him in some exhibition games, and if he doesn't crack the opening night roster, there's a chance a guy like that could be up, you know, mid-season and not go back down. So we got lots of time for this guy. It'll be tough. With most of them, the only thing I would say is I don't want young guys in general on the taxi squad not playing. So the American Hockey League gets up and gets going, and we have that resource to have these young players play. They got to play games.
And just on, you know, similar to that, what have you seen from your prospects at the World Juniors?
Well, they're all awfully exciting to watch, aren't they? I mean, Billy looks a little quicker. He's still got the same ice running through his veins when he's sliding across that blue line. Really excited. It's such a brilliant tournament, right? And then now is when the games are getting really interesting. We're all, you know, glued to our set watching the Finland-Sweden game. The Canadians games usually get more exciting as they get going, right? We get into heavier competition. So here's why I didn't answer your question directly. That's an unusual tournament, unusual talent, and it doesn't always translate. So there's a guy playing in that World Junior tournament that you sort of don't know is going to be a star, right? He's going to find a way, and then there'll be a bunch of really big name guys. You're going, geez, what happened to that guy? But I've really liked our guys. I understand. So the one thing I've always known working for the Winnipeg Jets, I understand why we draft people, right? Every one of these guys that's at that world tournament, you can see something specifically in their game. You can understand why we drafted them and what we're hoping develops in them. So fun to watch. And, you know, Finn Canada final would be fine if we could get that, but we'll see.
Thank you.
Go next to Josh Clipperton from the Canadian Press. Go ahead, Josh.
Hey, Paul, thanks for doing this. Happy New Year. I'm just wondering, you're obviously you're a fan before you were a coach. I'm wondering what intrigues you the most about this Canadian division and what we're going to be seeing over the next few months.
Yeah. Like the opportunity. So I got to say this the right way. It's the spectacle of it. 7 Canadian teams, and just think about for you guys, like how many articles you'll write this year on teams that aren't in Canada. Like we're at 0, right? Maybe 1 or 2 players. When you grew up, or when I grew up, right? This is Toronto Maple Leafs and it's the Montreal Canadiens. When I was really young, I don't know that I was particularly aware of any other teams. And when you grew up in Canada, that was kind of it. Like you were so wired into the Canadian culture, and now it's the scrutiny of it that will be intense. The rivalries that are going to grow here. I mean, just think of the teams in the East. We just don't see enough to create a rivalry. Now, Canadian cities, like the message boards alone, right, are going to be awesome. I don't read them, but you guys should, because they're going to be funny as hell. So everybody's going to get wound up. We've had the entire country locked down for a year. It's an all Canadian hockey. It's going to be fantastic. I'm, you know, God, it's such a terrible thing with the pandemic that this is the result of it, because it's such a horrible start. But you couldn't dream of anything better than this, right? The spectacle of it. It's going to be awesome. Somewhere between 2 and 5 of the coaches are getting fired, guaranteed. It's going to be great, you know?
And
that's going to make somebody's clipping that one. Sorry.
And just a hockey question. How much is, you know, being unpredictable going to matter? You're going to be playing teams so often. I mean, I know it's all about read and react and video, but like how many breakouts, how many power play looks, you know, you're just going to be, you guys are going to be studying each other so much to have to come up with something different. How important is that?
So that's a really, really good question, I think. And then if you decide then that you need more than one look, right, you need a different wrinkle, and you factor, let's say, 4 major defensive systems and 4 major offensive systems. If you put a wrinkle in that, and then you got 8 days to practice. So that'll be an interesting thing to see how deep coaches, I think basically, so what we'll do, you've got to get your basics back. You've got to have your standard training camp, but your ability to change what you do in game and in practice week to week, so that if you're playing a team for the 3rd time, that they don't see the same breakout, right? They don't see the same power play format. They see something different. but you got to be real careful about how many times you're going to change your grip, right, on your golf club, because you're going to get a different trajectory every time. So you've got to win. You've got to play well, play hard. But I do agree that you are going to have to be fairly creative in in how you approach the game, for sure.
And just a couple more. Paul Edmonds from Jets Radio. Go ahead, Paul.
Hey, Coach. Thanks a lot for taking the time.
Yeah.
Good to talk to you again. There is one sort of difference of your 12 forwards, and that would be number 11 in Nate Thompson. Just a thought on having a veteran center to start. You wanted that last year in Letestu, but because of his ailment, he couldn't continue. You get that out of camp here, and what did you see from Nate today?
Yeah, so the value in having a veteran man on your fourth line is that they've known that job for a long time, and they take a great amount of pride in it. It's usually all the hard things. You've developed the ability to sit on the bench for slightly longer than the normal rotation and come out and go hard. You're usually a penalty killer. Those are difficult things. So you've become a really, really good pro. If you're a veteran fourth line player, you're a good pro. So the benefit off ice, so in the game, is clear. But also you get a guy that will practice then the same way every day, right? He's not taking 3 days off and then trying to wind it up on the game. He knows his practices are critical for being prepared, also to drive the pace. So you've got him and Hark and Appleton that start going up and down the pace, and that's as good as Hark and Apple have looked in their first day of camp. They're going. They have that effect, right? They drive the people around them. In the end, part of that is he's got an awful lot of respect for that job. That's why he's willing to do it. And when you have respect for the people around you, will too. He's a fourth line player, but he has a big impact on the game, and he brings great value to the team. And the people around you then start to view that job with more respect, with the respect that job deserves.
And then just to follow up to that, can you sort of, put it into words about his excitement in coming to your team and joining it this year? And was that reflective of you seeing him today as well?
Yeah, you know what? He fits in a lot of ways. There's so many things. We need that centerman. He's good on the draws. He's a penalty killer. He's worked with Dave. He knows Forbert. He's got connections into our room. And he's been around the game long enough that he knows he fits here, and there's a job here for him. So he's wired. He's pretty excited about being here, and he's got a connection to it.
Thanks, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll end off with Jason Bell from the Winnipeg Free Press. Go ahead, Jason. All right. Looks like he's having some technical difficulties.
No, I'm good. I'm good. You there? Hey, Paul.
Oh.
No, see, come on. I'm always the one that makes you stay. And I said to you initially, I said something nice too, and I still mean it. I hope everybody in your circle has stayed healthy and happy. Listen, I think back to the 12-13 season, and teams might have been out of it by Valentine's Day, and we're kind of in the same situation here with the shortened season. You say after some games where you'll take it as a coach, it was your fault if your team came out flat, it wasn't their night. But how do you make sure that there aren't those kind of nights? Because a team cannot slide in any shape or form in a short season like this.
Yeah, part of the slides sometimes are a function of 82 games, right? Like you can get into a grind, whether it's a couple of injuries, and there's always a little bit of that sense that we got time, right? That you know what? Yeah, we're struggling a little bit, but we got time. There's no sense of that now. I can't tell you about the Jets 12-13 season, so I didn't see any of it. I know the one guy on my staff was in Chicago at the time. They were, I think, 20-3 out of the gate, so they're pretty sure they were making the playoffs. So we're going to go with his plan. How about that?
That's and as far as you, a masked Paul Maurice this season, we bank on reading lips with Paul Maurice usually, and maybe will the mask maybe keep you off a lot of those GIFs that we see and maybe save you a little more money with the National Hockey League this year?
Well, we've had some good laughs about what you can get away with a mask on, right? Like you think you can get away with a whole lot more with a mask on. You know what? like on the series, it's a challenge. It's a challenge running a practice with a mask on, and then clearly I don't know how much you watched, but we've got an electronic whistle or now, so you're pressing the button. It's not quite as loud. Then the battery went on it, so then I get the fucking whistle. It's stuck in my mask. I'm trying to blow it. I'm trying to scream. I mean, it was ugly there for a little while. So there's some challenges to it. I'm not going to complain about wearing the mask because, you know, it's such a serious situation that we're in. I'm going to wear the mask. But you will probably, there's no point in putting the camera on me on the bench. That's the only fun thing that I ever do is sometimes string a good string together for you. So, you know, we'll do it, but it's a challenge. I'm not like it's not an easy thing to do to communicate in a hockey environment wearing a mask.
Alrighty, thanks very much, Coach.
Okay, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Just so you know, when I'm muting you when they're answering your question, it's sometimes because your phones are going off or your computer's going off. So that's the only reason that's happening. And we also might have had a technical difficulty with some of the recordings earlier. I'm hoping we didn't, but just be aware that some of the interviews might be cropped a little bit. So just so you know, sorry about that, and we'll try not to let it happen again in the future. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you tomorrow.